Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. I'm Jonathan Crisp, one of the directors at BarnOwl. It's very nice to have everyone here. Cold weather and the traffic. Oops. We'll have to go around. I'd like to introduce you to Liam Duplessis, one of the director of Hireth Consulting. He's owned business with a couple of partners, I think, making clever people younger and younger these days. Everyone looks so young these days. That's probably because I'm getting much older. But thank you very much for coming through today. Your business specializes in corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions. We have engaged with Liam for quite some time now. Specialist also in terms of writing articles for various organizations around blockchain. Bitcoin, I think you know a lot about as well. So we're looking forward to a very entertaining presentation today. And thank you very much for your time. So we hope everyone enjoys today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jonathan, for the warm introductory session. Hi everyone, I'm Liam Duplessis. Obviously, Jonathan has stipulated I'm from Hireth Consulting, which is a specialist corporate finance advisory firm. We mainly focus around BEE transactions in particular, obviously taking into consideration the current economic landscape and exactly our position to actually thrive within that space. Obviously, today's presentation will entail blockchain technology. Obviously, this is a very, very nuanced approach to the look of it. Hence, there's not going to be a lot of jargon here. There's not going to be a lot of, me using big fancy words to try and impress you. Not at all. This presentation will be as informative and as collaborative as it could possibly be to ensure that when you leave this room, you not only have a genuine understanding of the piece of technology, but also its application in a variety of different industries. That's my key point here and the key point to take note of too. So please, during the presentation, we perfectly don't want to be taking questions during it. So if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please do write them down and we'll have a Q&A session towards the end. That's good with everyone. Excellent. Move on to our first slide. Obviously, first section of it, identifying the value of blockchain, a realistic attempt to understand blockchain technology and its value add application within industry. Now that is exactly what we're looking for here. We need to understand exactly what the technology is, most importantly, understand exactly how it's applied within each space of industry. Obviously, certain industries have different processes, different systems that they operate within. So from that, obviously not every organization is going to have an implementing system that is completely tailored to another. It's different from a variety of different spaces, which will obviously get clued into here. You people come from a variety of organizations, so hopefully once you get just an understanding of exactly how the technology is applied, you'll be able to exactly understand how it could be properly implemented with your organization in particular. Okay, excellent. Okay, let's say as a classic example, this is giving a realistic view on how blockchain will interact in our daily lives. That's the first space. We cover off the bottom base and see exactly how that piece of technology is applied and see how it's applied in everyday life, give you a far greater understanding of how it can be applied in industry. We start over basics here. As a classic case, I want to buy a house in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, place not necessarily important, right? Now, I want to buy a place, cost maybe $1.3 million, right? So now I contact the owner, I want to essentially buy this house, but this house is in San Francisco, I'm in South Africa, how on earth will I need to do this, right? But then again, another question to ask is, how do I know that the person I'm contacting is in fact the owner of the actual property? How do I know it's not a scam? These are genuine concerns that we roll with on a daily basis for a variety of different things, right? Business is bedrocked on the same principle and one principle only, trust. When I engage with somebody in particular, I need to make sure that the person I'm in fact engaging with is in fact telling the rightful truth in whatever I want to find out. Whether it's something as simple as buying a house, as a classic case, right? This is the application of it, this is a piece of it. So trust is a major component of. Now, obviously, we'll detail down the importance of trust in an organization. We are well aware. We have certain partners, intermediaries that we interact with on a daily basis to ensure that our work is carried out through and that those systems and processes are followed through and detailed down exactly the way they need to. This is a process that we all need to ensure. Much of you are from different departments and organizations. Much of you suffer from different constraints within your organizations, dealing with partners, certain intermediaries that tend to do this. But what you all have in common is that one element of trust, that my piece of work is moving on to the next, and that person's piece of work is being done, and that process essentially follows down. whether it's in the form of a management information system, a particular process, a particular system, a software that you use, or something as simple as keeping contact with the person next to you. We're all looking over everybody's shoulders to ensure that not only because their work is getting done, but we also ensure that our bit is getting done too. This is also a very important component in the realms of different processes and departments within business that we're all cognizant on and we're all well aware of. Excellent. So obviously this slide pretty much details exactly that. I'll trickle down into this example again, the property purchase, so you can see the actual application of that piece of technology. But one thing we must understand, blockchain is a technology. The same way peer-to-peer file sharing is a technology. The same way virtual reality is a technology. But the technology itself of blockchain can be applied in various different ways. We've all seen the hype behind Bitcoin. There's been many controversy, and I can assure you much of what's around Bitcoin is a lot of hype. But we'll trickle down into that once you see the application of the blockchain technology, and you'll see how it fits in with Bitcoin in particular, and you'll be able to make the connection. Therefore, when you see a lot of the hype moving on from your news blast or a friend telling you to jump into the market, you'll be able to have a far better understanding of what's expected from you and what the market is actually trying to get you at. Excellent. Excellent. So obviously this just speaks about every process that's entailed within every industry, with trade finance, importers, shipping company, issuing bank, exporter, and we move on to the supply chain industry. These are all relevant parties involved for the daily operation of these organizations. Hence, moving on with the property purchase. Now, back to my example of the property purchase. I'm staying in South Africa. I want to buy this house in San Francisco, right? But how would essentially need to, purchase this property? How do I know that the person I'm contacting is in fact the owner? How do I know that that property even exists, right? We're not the first person or the last person that's also going to be pulled off by an online scam like this, right? And obviously, the biggest element of business here is trust. So how do I ensure that when I put over my offer, does the money go through first, or do I get the keys to the house first? What if I pay the money first, but the person doesn't give me the keys to the house? Bear in mind, I stay very far away. So how do I essentially know that the person I'm dealing with is in fact the person I'm dealing with? And that is the overall element of processes within blockchain. Blockchain deals with a lot of automating certain processes that make it easier, but ensuring trust throughout that process. Now we have middlemen, intermediaries, to assure us during this trust process. Essentially, we have auditors that vet certain processes to ensure that everything is being run on track, on right, and within the right processes. These are constraints that a variety of businesses face. So if you move back onto the property purchase, we suffer with the same element of trust. How do I show I'm trusting the person? How do I know that whatever it is, do I hand over the keys? Do I get the keys to the house? Do I pay first? What if it's a scam? What if this place even really exists? That's the element of trust I'm really trying to cement onto here. Because once you move into the rest bits of the presentation, you'll see, understand exactly about how that technology fits into those various pieces and seeing how we're able to apply it and make sense of it, depending on where we see fit, depending on where we see this technology can be incorporated, and most importantly, identifying value that it must create in order to extract what we need to extract from it. And a normal property purchase, we have to deal with notaries, lawyers, bankers, we have to deal with a whole myriad of people to ensure that this transaction, me buying the house, is sufficient and secure. Those intermediaries between me buying the house and the house being sold is a timeless process that we need to go through. We need to ensure the bank gets the bond. Do I get a proof of my bond? Does the notary sign off? Does in fact the property owner, the property owner? Is there deeds of estate that vet for this? These are all the constraints that we all face. Right? And they must ensure that we identify these processes and identify these trusts to really allow ourselves to actually understand exactly what's being demonstrated here. And that's essentially what we set to focus on. Now, blockchain, as a classic case, you must say, we already have systems that deal with this. But these systems are, as you said, very expensive, very costly, reconcile often manually, extremely inefficient, and can take days to complete, open to fraudulent activity, hence human error. If you're going through such a long intermediary process between me buying my house, how is this essentially implied? Because I have to deal with all these intermediaries that can be time costly and cost us a lot of money within the process. What appears to be real-time or automated to us as a customer is often very manualized. You've always went to the bank before, got your ticket, and had to go wait in the line. Wait for your ticket to be called up, you get called in, and very much all these processes is automated. It's very manual. I need your physical copy of your ID. I need to dock your ID number through the system. Once I dock your ID number through the system, your account pops up, I know you say who you are. Very timely process. Now, what if there's 100 of us doing this? can be very, very inefficient. Very, very inefficient, and can take very, very time consuming. And I mean, who wants to stay in the bank for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, waiting for something as simple as getting a check for your bond, or trying to get your account approved, or to ensure that you want to block your account for that matter, you know, if you lose your card. These are all things that we have to go through. Now, the element of blockchain and how blockchain incorporates this is it slashes out that middleman, completely slashes out that middleman, and ensures trust from the beginning to the last end of that process. That's the element of blockchain. It's a piece of technology that underwrites that. And I'll exactly go into the next part of my presentation. We'll detail this on. Seeding methods, as I emphasized before, much of these processes are costly and very, very time intensive for a lot of different reasons. Again, it's the element of ensuring trust throughout that business processes. That's what we want. That's why we have intermediaries. That's why I need a lawyer. That's why I need a notary. That's why I need all these people in between, just something as simple as my property purchase, to ensure that what I am going through is actually going to see the end of the day, in the light. We want that sense of surety. We want that sense of it. But again, to ensure that sense of surety, it costs time and it costs money. It's one of the biggest commodities that we have in life. Nobody wants to expedite that process. Everybody wants to expedite that process, but you must understand that detailing that process through and ensuring we find a collaborative way to ensure that it gets done is time consuming and expensive, at least with the current systems that we have employed. Now, what we need to understand is blockchain streamlines this process. It streamlines the way trust is normally established. An intermediary would ensure that trust in a transaction that's very simple. Now, blockchain exceeds this process. It makes it streamlined, far more efficient, and costs very, very, very much less. And that's essentially what we're after. Now, cryptocurrency is an element that cryptocurrency uses the blockchain technology, right? We all know what Bitcoin is, some form of digital currency where I have a digital wallet and I can purchase things from another individual with the points of exchanging this virtual currency, right? Now, the blockchain system is almost like a SPL, a subject digital ledger. Now, what this essentially does is that it docks every single transaction through. And this transaction is docked through on a network. Let's see, every one of us in this room is a computer, right? And we're all within this network. And I want to purchase Jonathan's jersey as a classic case, right? So I would exchange this. As soon as my Bitcoin would move to Jonathan, that jersey would dock in as purchase, and everyone in this room would get a vetted copy of identical receipt showing that Liam bought that jersey from Jonathan. We'll all get a copy of it. It limits risks. It's unalterable. You can't change it, I can't change it, and everybody in the network is verified that that transaction in fact took place. That is the basis of the technology. Bitcoin essentially uses this technology to dock in its transactions on a myriad of different computers at different levels, and purchases are essentially docked in on this network. Everybody gets an identical copy, everybody understands what happened, when it happened, and within real time. And that's the base of it. That's how it's implemented, and that's exactly, for the classic case, how cryptocurrency uses the elements of blockchain. What we'll move in through after this is we'll go through case study by case study and see exactly challenges that the organization faced and how the incorporation of blockchain can be added onto the solution. We'll move through that focus to be able to see, and most importantly, there'll be a variety of different companies. We'll move into trade finance, commercial insurance. We'll see its application on supply chain. We'll go through some well-known companies like Starbucks, Beulah, some well-known companies, so you can see exactly what challenges these companies face. And how is blockchain added onto a solution for corrective measure to ensure that these processes are automated and to ensure that the collaboration of the technology and the organization was harmonious. That's essentially what we are set to see here. Now, as I say, how does blockchain work? Data is stored in a ledger, and a record of every transaction is kept within this network, right? Everyone within this network is known as a node. A node is just another form or code by which a computer could be named by. Hence, every computer within this network is kept within this network. Any pair of transactions that exchanges between this network will be verified to all participants within this network. And that's exactly how it will be collaborative. That's exactly how everyone will be rest assured knowing that this transaction did in fact take place, and we all know it in fact took place. Because that's an element of trust. Trust ensures that whatever it is, whatever transaction took place within that, there's a genuine receipt and application that verifies that it in fact took place, and to see how we all can rest assured knowing that in fact it did happen. That's essentially what it's set here to do. It docks off the wastes of intermediaries to vet that process, and essentially puts a one end-to-end basis. Now, another element to blockchain is something called smart contracts. And if you've heard of this. Now, smart contracts is a black case. We'll move on to the property purchase as another form, right? I need to buy a piece of property. I'm staying here in South Africa. The property is particularly in Chicago or San Francisco, anywhere like that. Now, it costs $1.3 million. I want to put in a transaction. I want to ensure that I, in fact, get the keys to my house. Now, how would blockchain streamline a process? Let's go to the normal process. I need to apply for my bond, make sure my bond gets approved. I need to ensure that notaries, lawyers, all these paperwork is kind of docked through so that I can get the keys to my house and move in, right? But this is definitely not a day or a week process. It's time consuming, can take months, and it can cost you a decent amount of money in the process of trying to do this. How does blockchain eradicate this? Well, blockchain will essentially be buyers and sellers are part of this network. A seller has a house, puts the house up. I'm part of that network. I'm well informed that the house is in fact for sale. We're all well informed that the house in fact is for sale, right? But I purchase the house. As soon as the purchase of that house goes through, everybody in the network is notified. But how do I know, as a classic case, that the person within the network even is putting up the house for sale and the house exists? Well, a classic case for what's going on in San Francisco right now, they have sensors built into each townhouse within a given block. So as soon as I transport my money, it's kept in a special account. So it's kept in a special account. I move my money to the special account. And a smart contract is essentially a piece of software that executes the transactions as soon as I've walked into my house. So say there's a sensor door put at each one of these houses. As soon as I walk in, sensor goes off, transaction goes through, it's verified. Everybody in the network is a genuine indication that in fact the transaction did happen and in fact he is the real owner. If I walk in, or let's say the owner gives me a false key and it doesn't open, I won't go in the house, sensor won't go off, my money's still kept intact. It protects that element of trust there in the middle. Now obviously this technology they're still trying to figure out the nooks and crannies to try to make it as efficient and as streamlined as it can be, right? Because there's things like hackers, there's things, all these other things, especially with the incorporation of technology, to how it will actually ensure that I'm as safe and as well kept as I need to be. That's the overall point that we're trying to make here, and essentially we're trying to build that element of trust. That's the theme I'm really trying to underline here with the group. As long as we understand that element of trust, we understand that there's intermediaries involved, that is time consuming and costly. Blockchain eradicates that bit in the middle, makes it far more efficient within less time, and it allows us to move on with processes far more efficiently. That's the basis of this. Now, as I said, this is a visual representation of what it would look like. The application of blockchain and how the technology would be at play. Everybody within the network, as it's stipulated, is called a node. Node is just a name given to whatever computer that operates within this given network. A transaction is clued up between two individuals. Transaction can be for whatever. That transaction is docked in. Once a transaction is signed, dated, and executed with the use of a smart contract, per se, smart contract will essentially ensure that both parties are made agreement to whatever it is that they made agreement to. The reality is, and within this network, once it moves into this network, it's unalterable. Smart contract cannot be changed. Now you tell me, Liam, but how do you know that? You don't know hackers these days. You don't know the level of basis that you can put. Well, it's to say the same thing with the normal property purchase we move into. You know, I sign an offer, contract of sale is signed, the house is handed over to me, contract is kept with one person, contract is kept with another. I mean, where's this contract kept? On a hard drive, you know, in somebody's USB in their pocket. I mean, is that really safe? What stops somebody from hacking into that computer and altering the contract that I signed to ensure that what I said there is not what I said? And these are genuine constraints that everybody battles. There's only so many measures you can take to ensure that your risk is mitigated. In whatever measures that you take, with whatever risks you take, the variety of different forms. This just happens to deal with the property purchase in particular. As you said, once this contract moves into the network, it is unalterable. Cannot be adjusted, cannot be molded. Everybody within the network, as you can see, gets a duplicate copy of, in fact, from both parties to ensure that, in fact, that contract that said this or that is, in fact, vetted in the network. It's, in fact, ensured, and everybody has an identical copy to prove this. Now, as a classic case, we'll move into the element of blockchain. Why is it called blockchain? Right? The reason why it's called blockchain is because the identical contract that's ensured within the piece of software is dated within a piece of software. That piece of software vets, in fact, that the contract stipulates this, this, and this. Within that, it's kept within a block. This block is essentially a protected layer that ensures that with every contract, it is kept within the system and is unalterable. Scripted message is then over the contract, hence it referred to it as a block, almost just another term for it to ensure that it's a protective measure taken so that contract that's stipulated cannot be altered, cannot be changed, cannot be adjusted. Now that is kept in a chain of blocks, hence the term blockchain. That's how the network is put, that's how the network is applied, and that's how the definition came about. Bitcoin was actually established in 2008, after the financial crisis, by a Japanese man by the name of Soshio Tamashi. Blockchain technology was developed all the way back in 1991. Much of what you see now, elements of blockchain, elements of Bitcoin, is technology pieces that have been developed a while ago. It's the hype and incorporation of it. Blockchain only got its hype after the new hype of Bitcoin. Once Bitcoin had a buzz, blockchain was essentially the underlying technology that allowed Bitcoin to function. Now everybody's asking a lot of questions. What is Bitcoin? What is this blockchain? Now, again, I'll move on to what I said previously. Blockchain, as we must understand, it's just a technology. It can be used for a variety of different purposes, for a variety of different uses. It's like peer-to-peer file sharing is a technology, or virtual reality is a technology. And blockchain in particular can be used for a multitude of different things. Multitude of different applications, multitude of different reasons, multitude of different uses. That's what we need to understand here. It doesn't have one blanket fits all. Bitcoin uses it as its underlying basis, and you can understand now why Bitcoin uses it. You can understand the verification between transactions, how it's kept within the network. Now, my speculation would follow, but where's the valuations coming for this Bitcoin? Why is it of value? Why is there so much buzz around it? These are all questions that a lot of people are asking. Why must I delve within the market? Is it safe to delve within the market? Who sets these valuations? Why is it going up one day and tanking the next? Why is it of so much value 1 minute and then the next minute it's not worth much? These are all constraints that Bitcoin essentially tries to corroborate with their story. But as I said, Jonathan, that's a discussion for another day. And we love to delve into the Bitcoin topic maybe once we have perhaps more time. The second point is as a hacker. All right, so Liam, how do we know that somebody's not going to hack into my e-wallet on Bitcoin or hack into my network and I'll alter my contact, because everything is just digitalized, right? I'm not safe with everything being digitalized. Of course, why would you be? I mean, it's something you're not necessarily presently clued up on, and if something goes wrong, you're in the dark with how to fix it. Not everybody's a technologist, not everybody's a programmer, not everybody is sharp in C++. These are all well-known facts, and obviously a myriad of people would have genuine concerns with using a network such as this. But I'll move back to my example that as I stipulated before. Within the network, there's a variety of different computers that is collaborative within the network. Everybody, as I said, gets an identical piece of copy of this information. This information is applied. This information is kept within the system. If I'm a hacker and I want to hack the system, I would have to hack into every single computer or every single node in that network. That's very time consuming, because I'll have to essentially hack into one and make sure that every single contract within that system is adjusted to whatever I want it to say. Now, as much as a hacker is a hacker, who's going to hack into a network that has 300 computers, 400 computers, 500, 1,000? Hackers don't have the time for this. It's time consuming and requires critical attention to detail when you're attempting something like this. Hence, the fact that the technology just operates the way it is already acts almost as a risk management plan. Should anything want to go wrong, or should any network want to be altered, or any contract want to be altered within the network? This is essentially almost like a risk mitigation tool that would essentially use to allow that to not necessarily be the case. Now, we'll move on to some critical examples of the application of blockchain. How blockchain operates within the network, how it essentially collaborates within the network, and most importantly, how it affects each industry in particular. I'm not a guru on every industry that was ever made under the face of the sun. Much of my application, much of my examples here are completely an overview, a general understanding of how it would be applied. Perhaps you'll be able to connect the rest of the dots to that. This is almost giving you the ingredients to make your own pie here. To essentially exactly see where it can be tailored, how it can be adjusted, and making the general changes where necessary, how necessary, and the way it needs to be altered and made efficiently. That's the basis of this. So the next couple of slides will detail onto that. But these couple of examples are just set to give us a far better understanding of its application within industry. Some companies, as a classic case, offer real estate deals using smart contracts. The property example I used is 2 companies in San Francisco called A Black and CQC. These 2 companies are already offering real estate deals with the use of smart contracts. Now, why would they offer this? It's because it makes people who want to invest in real estate far more efficient, because they don't have to deal with intermediaries, costs don't need to rack up, processes and time can be made far shorter with the use of doing this. Hence, organizations, hence individual investors are opting to use this particular system. Blockchain is being used for website hosting and data storage. Now, as you said, within the network, data can be easily shared within everybody within that network. Everybody has a verified copy of whatever transaction took place, whenever, however. Right? This makes storing particular sets of data and website hosting within a particular domain far more efficient. Less time consuming, and once again, I don't have to deal with intermediaries that rack up my costs at the end of a particular transaction I try to make. And this tends to be far more consuming than it needs to be. Thirdly, cryptocurrency usage of the technology to verify peer-to-peer transactions. Now, when Bitcoin speaks about peer-to-peer transactions, that slide I showed you, illustrating the nodes, illustrating the transaction between one individual, and how everyone within that network gets identical copy, that's purely what they mean by peer-to-peer verification. It means the one next to you and the one to the other side of you has a verified copy on every transaction took place, when it took place, how it took place, how much it took place for, and most importantly, within real time. Not 2 days after it went off, no. As soon as a transaction is executed, we all get a verified view of it. That's the basis of it. Now, blockchain technology in particular has applications across industries, right? I'm talking from banking and capital markets, health, manufacturing, retail, and the examples put here exactly show how exactly the blockchain technology would improve particular systems, or how would it go about improving particular systems. As a classic case, manufacturing is one. Asset tracking. Blockchain could essentially do. It's part of the network, part of the application, part to be able to track exactly within real time what's happening, the way it's happening, and how it's happening. Real-time auction for supplier contracts, again with the use of smart contracts. As soon as contracts are executed between suppliers, they don't have to deal with that lag time, that intermediary basis that tends to prolong the process. They can cut that as short as possible, how they need to, and where they need to. This process tends to be the case. Move on to the next one. Retail is the same thing. Loyalty tracking, logistics management, digital rewards. We all have smart shopper cards as a classic case, right? The use of the smart shopper cards, it adds value to the retailer itself, Pick and Pay. To you, you want to swipe your card, you want to use it, but that's valuable information that Pick and Pay uses. They know what you're purchasing, where you purchased it, and how often you purchase again. This type of information is crucial to them because they're making genuine adjustments to your purchasing habits, to your basis for when you buy, what you buy, and how you buy, and what you buy it for. And think about it, with the use of putting something as simple like this, a simple piece of technology, within a network that functions at this level, imagine the level of capability you'll be able to have. You'll be able to have a preemptive approach to predictive capability in every sense of the word. I'll be able to track exactly how much sets of milk I'm selling, the day I'm selling it at, who's buying it, and everybody in the network has a verification of it. That type of information is key. It's the basis of why social media uses what it uses. It's not a social media platform for us to collaborate, no. It's an information source. It allows us to know exactly what are you thinking, when you're thinking it, and why you're thinking it. Social media can track who's about to get married and by when. Take it into consideration who's uploading certain types of pictures. The algorithms that social media networks use is amazing. They'll be able to track how many people are in a photo, what are they wearing in this photo, who's tagged in this photo, and use all of that information to make a strategic move to sell you something, or to make a strategic move to pitch something to you. You think it's out of habit, you think it's out of some form of base, you think it's out of some form of intuition that this network has. No, it's on the basis of accurately using information to their disposal. Blockchain is just another attempt for the fourth industrial revolution to take shape on a massive scale. Throughout industries, throughout our daily lives, and throughout our basic use of technology. Not only at home, but at work too. Now the point of this is not to show you how fancy blockchain is and how I can automate processes and blah, 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 blah. I'm not trying to sell you something here. The basis of it is that we need to understand exactly what the incorporation of this piece of technology is and understand how it can be used to better, efficiently make our organizations function. That's the key that we're trying to do here. The better our organizations function, the far more collaborative they're able to be with each particular industry, with each particular partner, or with each particular customer that they involve. This is all stakeholders across the board. That's the base of who we're trying to add value for you. And as much as we understand the application of that piece of technology, again, and I'll say it one more time, blockchain is just another piece of technology. It's one piece of technology that can be applied in various different industries from one perspective to another. Bitcoin uses this technology. Blockchain is another point of reference that uses a set of technology and it essentially processes out through. I'll detail into, this is pretty much giving you an overview on the application. But the next couple of slides, if you'll notice, give a detailed application of what the normal process would be, detailing with the shared ledger or blockchain and how that process would be. You'd see the collaborative edge being far more efficient between parties there than it would be in our daily processes that we would use to essentially function. One, currently we'll move through trade finance as a classic case. Read through some of the case studies. Much of this is going to be content-based. Much of it's going to be much more bullet point, so you can get the gist of how it's applied. Not everybody is from a particular finance sector, hence the use of language is very much collaborative to a variety of different industries. You'll understand the use of language, you'll understand how it's collaborative, and you'll understand exactly what point is and the process that applied within that particular industry. The industry necessarily is not particularly blanketed to one. Much of the processes and systems that function within industry is very much the same. Systems and processes may differ from department to department, but much of the overall application to what needs to get done is very much similar, and we'll be able to detail down with each slide. First couple of slides will be content-based. Next couple of slides will show a graphic depiction, visual illustration of exactly what this piece of technology do, how it's incorporated, and how it's essentially making processes far more efficient and far more collaborative. That's essentially what we're after. So for example, classic case trade finance. Read current state. Today, solutions for managing trade finance are built on anticipated and quantitative technology and process that exist in silos. This adds significant risk, complexity, and time into trade process as all parties have manually verified data. Pain points include. Right? Everybody understands the basis of the automated or the manual processes that are essentially at play here. First point one, the error-prone manual process for creating, validating order trade data and documentation. It's error-prone, especially for the iterating of these manual processes. It's human error, right? There's a major risk essentially posted out there. Silo data that is difficult to verify, leading to multiple verifications with major fraud, compliance, and audit risk. These are essentially much of the other points of order. If data is kept within a certain funnel, it's hard to use that information to essentially make other processes sound the process serious. So we kind of trust our next door neighbor to ensure that whatever work I carry out, you'll vet through. You'll ensure that the data I use is for my set of work and the data you use for your set of work. And that's essentially how the process is docked down from department to department, from process to process. Again, manual, very time intensive. Disconnected legacy systems that limit new business opportunities make it difficult for small and medium sized to gain access to financing alternatives. During the lag time of these processes, organizations find it very, very difficult to essentially get hold of particular finance to be able to make certain opportunities may arise that have a time dock on them. Now, if those opportunities have a time dock on them and our manual process keep on expeding time far more than they need to, misses failure opportunities we would need, maybe to access more financing to buy more from our supplier, or to essentially increase our customer base, or to increase our brand awareness. Now, these are opportunities that come and face organizations on a daily basis. Now, if we too boggle down with manual processes, how are we able to take these opportunities to their full extent, use these opportunities to their full extent? It makes things very, very, very difficult for us to do. Hence, manual time processing and essentially creates a lot of lag time through. Organizations don't need this. And with the use of the fourth industrial revolution coming at our doorstep, if organizations don't automate much of their processes now, much of how organizations are going to function from now, from the time I'm 45, is going to be far, far different. If organizations aren't able to step up on it now, don't think they'll jump on the bandwagon by the time the hype is up. By that time, whoever was on it is gone. And if you weren't with it, you're moving under. Organizations are becoming far more competitive in every sense of the word. Whether it's manualizing processes, something as simple as how they make coffee more efficiently is being done to break with that lag time. Now, what is blockchain solution? Obviously, now that you understand the gist of blockchain, you understand its application, you understand its usage, you'll be able to see how it's incorporated within every solution. You see how it's applied, how it's made better, and how it can essentially make things more efficient within organizations with the use of the technology. So each slide, as I stipulated before, current slide focuses on the current state of things, this focus on the future state with the incorporation of blockchain. Blockchain opens the door for streamlined trade finance, enabling participants to exchange data easily and track assets in real time. Again, because those processes are automated, ability to have access to financing and the ability to have access to it in real time creates that lag time and gets rid of it completely, essentially allowing us to operate as efficiently as we can possibly operate, which makes the processes running the business that much more efficient. It means we'll be able to take on 4 to 50 clients within a given 10 minutes, within a 50 minutes, within an hour. Depending on how much you can take within that time, you can project how many clients you can take on within the near future, within the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And that's with the incorporation of it. Corda, as it's an enterprise that focuses on data analytics, a grade ledger that enables banks to limit who sees what information and selectively share data within relevant parties. The solution involves blockchain technology paired with Azure. Azure is a Microsoft-based blockchain use, and APIs, and would be used in the future to involve technologies like AI, machine learning, IoT, and more. Again, this just speaks on the fact that blockchain is just one piece of technology. That one piece of technology and application is going to be invited to one piece to automate certain processes within the organization. But the incorporation of artificial intelligence and with the use of robotics, so the use of data analytics, these are all set to shape different departments in an organization. Blockchain, again, just being one of them. But the reality is that these phases and these changes are going to take shape from a variety of different perspectives, at a variety of different levels, for a variety of different reasons. Organizations face different challenges day to day. They need to make decisions to ensure that that challenge has a solution attached to it, and that the solution that's implemented it's collaborative, not only that the workforce can carry through on, but operate efficiently under. There's no use I incorporate a system where my workforce is unable to ensure that that system functions efficiently, or understands the fact that I operate and I just put a bunch of fancy technology in and I expect you to just understand it. Not only understand it, but operate efficiently under it. It's unrealistic. Greatly, greatly unrealistic. Organizations need to be able to apply what piece of technology is needed, when is it needed, and how it's going to be beneficial to the organization, and ensure that the workforce can use it on the go within real time. I can implement all the systems I want to implement. If those aren't taken in by the organization, applied accurately, and ensure that it's pushed through every step of the way, this tends to make lag time grow that much more. It makes us more inefficient than we need to be. And again, these systems need to be implemented in a way that is not only bombarding the workforce with a new process, but essentially adds to the way that they currently do things. We're not taking away, we're adding value. That's an important basis, not only for blockchain, but any piece of technology and any system incorporated within an organization at a variety of different levels. Management's role is essentially to oversee what the processes are being ensured and the processes are being implemented, or exco seat is to ensure that systems are being processed, or systems are being done, or the technology is actually working as efficiently as it needs to. But again, hierarchical structure, the basis for any organization, tends to make things very draw down, very top down or top up. And this lag time is created within this. Organizations need to understand with the use of blockchain, they'll be able to operate far more efficiently on a collaborative level at each level. No matter what your department is, no matter what it is. Bigger organizations operate like a far bigger factory that operate with small essentially goods. Everybody does a little bit to something. And the eventually end-out product is far more greater than you may think it is, being a little gear system within the chain of things. And that's one way of looking at it. Whereas small organizations, you're allowed to get a far more collaborative feel in every sense of the department at every single level. Exactly how it's operated, the way it's operated, and how you see yourself in the grander scheme of things. Blockchain technology automates that process, understanding exactly where you are in the system, how the system verifies within each transaction, and how it's played out to that level. Commercial insurance is another point. Again, much of the overview slides, I haven't worked in insurance, nor do I know. Everything here is rated from an overview perspective. My understanding of the particular technology and how it plays within each industry. One of them being trade finance, the other one being commercial insurance. Specialty insurance deals with high-value assets, typically requires collaboration between many parties, insurers, consumers, brokers, aggregators, platforms, reinsurers, the list goes on. Insurers have to deal with all those parties involved. Again, what we dock those under, intermediaries. Those middlemen between the process of our work, them vetting it, and the end result. Again, much of the challenges that face is the same. Siloed information, lack of real-time visibility, difficulty of accurate underwriting due to a lack of clarity, inefficient. All speak to the same point. All speak to the same point. Technology and incorporation in business is not to expedite processes and leave things at that. It's to make things more efficient at every level. Processes are not changing. They're just making it far more efficient. It means the basis of growth within the next 5 to 10 years is going to be massive with the incorporation of tech. Organizations that have long-standing for 40 to 50 years will be in slight competitors with your companies that came within the next year or two. Why is that? Because incorporation of technology makes systems far more efficient, far more collaborative. Now, if you can step in the market, prove your self-worth, prove your level of efficiency, and prove the work that you get done, why would somebody opt for another organization over you? They wouldn't, because you operate at the same level they would. That's the only thing organizations within that space care about. Can you do the work that I insure you to do, and can you do it more efficient than everybody else? You do that, you're in business. Now, with the use of technology, with the use of AI, with the use of blockchain, with the use of all of these systems and technologies set to shake industries now in the near time, that's what we need to be able to identify. We need to be able to identify that, extract the value points out of it, and implement it. Only then can we see real-time results. And once the process is automated, once that process is incorporated, we must never think that it's a slapdash and it's going to come within the next 2 days. Processes that change, timeless has changed. All of that has lag time even once it's implemented, even with the use of blockchain. It's not instant gratification. It takes time, it takes adjusting, and most importantly, it also takes some getting used to. Everybody within the organization, from top to bottom, needs to understand this, even when the technology is implemented at a variety of different levels. Again, so what's blockchain's answer to the challenges that the commercial insurance space with the lack of intermediaries, lack of quality and clarity, and inefficiencies? Again, blockchain's ability to provide a single source of truth provides a massive operational simplification and data transparency between many parties. Now, you understand this very well because you understand the node network that showed. The fact that once a transaction is complete, or once any particular transaction appeared or an action executed, everyone has a verification process that did in fact happen. Again, it deals with the challenge mentioned in the previous slide. Lack of clarity. It's given, yeah, everybody has identical copy. Efficiency, it's transported because it doesn't need to go through intermediaries the way it needs to. Again, it's also made more efficient because it doesn't need to, and costs far less. All those mentioned just eradicate all of this within just that first sentence mentioned. Furthermore, blockchain can facilitate the creation of trade consortiums, and many organizations can easily, such as the platform created by EY, Microsoft, and Gartime, well-known organizations that function within this market. Obviously, with the incorporation of blockchain, these would be the organizations pioneering that particular technology. Why so? They have the necessary resources for it, they have the guys who understand it, and they have the systems that corroborate its implementation. Those are the 3 points that organizations that function at this level have and be able to implement every single step of the way. Despite the variety of constraints that each organization might have. Much of the process is, again, to make them more efficient, make it cost less, and to mitigate risk every step of the way. And this also, blockchain technology also helps within the auditing function. Because if everybody gets a verification of whatever action that was executed, maybe a particular workload or financial transaction of that, if everybody's vetted through, the compliance and audit function is essentially writing itself. Essentially docking processes through. Essentially verifying that what happened, in fact, did happen. So it functions on that, streamline that process in every single way. And again, as I've mentioned in the previous slide that I had, it establishes trust. It streamlines the process of trust. Because the only reason why we have intermediaries to vet, to run through different processes, to run through different departments of organization, is to vet a certain function, to ensure a certain function is being done. That's why I hire a notary when I want to buy a property, or I have lawyers involved, or the bank is involved. All these parties are just set to ensure that trust within that particular transaction is ensured. That's the only processes that these particular functions follow. And that's what we need to get into organization of blockchain, and why the incorporation of the technology streamlines that the way trust is established. Moving to another case study. Starbucks empowers each member of its supply chain. Everybody's well known as Starbucks, a massive coffee franchisor. Now, we'll move into, as I said, this is particular case studies we're going to go through. Starbucks happens to be one of them, another company by the name of Beulah be one of them. And a company called InterSwitch. Now what we'll do is, now that we all have a very much basic understanding of the application of the technology, what we'll do is we'll move through a couple case studies and vet a challenge faced by that particular organization and how the implementation of blockchain ensured that there was a solution. Okay, first point, challenge. Starbucks needed increased visibility into the movement of beans across its vast supply chain. Obviously, Starbucks is not a small organization. 97% of farmers are small-hold, 1-acre farms that have difficulty scaling production to meet demands. Right? Starbucks, as I mentioned, it's not a small company. And much of the people that they get their supplies from, not necessarily big farmers. Some of them have an acre farm, some of them have different variety of scale of farm. Hence, that speaks to the fact of how much they can produce in direct correlation to how much we can sell. If one doesn't match the other, nothing's happening there. That's a challenge faced. Solution. Use blockchain-based smart contracts to define the responsibilities of each supply chain participant and record their activities. Now, as we spoke of, the smart contract is a little piece of software that just vets whatever particular function or action is taken on, this is where it's stipulated on. And the minute that transaction or particular execution is taken, it's verified. Now, this allows Starbucks to record every single piece of movement within their supply chain. Because what do they want to do? They want to increase visibility. They want to ensure that every point of their supply chain is vetted, controlled, and understood exactly what is happening along that process. Provides immutable proof of end purchase to farmers, enabling access to high-quality credit. Again, it allows all those records within the transaction to be unalterable, to ensure that when that execution is complete, it's in fact complete. And if it's not complete, it will be flagged on. This allows it to be far more predictive within their supply chain function, to ensure every function is actually being detailed through, actually being complete, and actually carried out to the standard that they deem necessary at every step of the way. It ensures that their whole process is well looked after and well kept an eye on. Monitor the movement of beans from farm to port using a shared cloud-based app. Now, this is just another form of saying it's an application that ensures that whatever execution is put within that network is in fact verified. It's just an application that stipulates that in fact whatever said happened, depending on your smart contracts, depending on the verification, depending on everybody getting a record within the system, is done. That app ensures that there's visibility to ensure that those processes are in fact being done. This is a classic case ensuring that there was this particular problem faced with an organization and exactly how that incorporation of that particular technology was implemented and the benefits that they achieved from it. Challenge, solution. Now that you understand this particular case study and you have a very just understanding of the blockchain technology itself, how it's incorporated, you're able to have a very, very detailed approach to not only how it's managed, but how you see things moving forward. Again, and it reinforces trust amongst farmers to customers. This again speaks about that supply chain. It creates trust throughout the process to ensure farmers are financially empowered because of their access to trade finance, because their processes are being automated, because they're able to make predictive approaches when necessary, how necessary, depending on whatever challenge they face along that process. Understood downstream movement of their products and better forecast demands. Again, if I'm able to make preemptive approaches to how I exactly detail whatever mishaps happen within my supply chain, I can predict certain forecasts. I can predict that if I'm collecting this and this much by this time, I'll be able to make those adjustments moving things forward. And that's essentially what it is trying to create every step of the way, with every way the process is adjusted, how it's adjusted, and most importantly, how it's collaborative for the organization itself with the use of the technology. Second point, Starbucks receives immutable contracts of bean provenance, inventory state changes, and movement. Starbucks throughout this process is updated. They understand what's happening, when it's happening, the way it's happening, with real-time impact. That makes them be able to be out function as efficiently as they possibly need to, as collaborative as they possibly need to, with stakeholders, as well as everyone within their supply chain. Second point, customers enjoy increased transparency. We live in a very, very scrutinized business. Reputation is key. Now, if you're able to streamline that trust process and create an increased level of transparency within your organization, customers are far more trusting to whatever you sell them, far more trusting to whatever service offering you may have, and far more trusting for your abilities to get whatever they need to get done. So across the board, this ensures value is created within each organization and within each function. Into the individual region, the farm origin of the coffee, tactics used to farm in the high-end coffee. Customers are informed about all of this because of the tech use, within the use of the technology, which organizations are being able to get a preemptive look into exactly how that company functions and how I get my coffee on my table. Customers love to see the end result to things, but what they love even more is when they get increased transparency to how you got it done. Allows them to rest assured knowing that you went the extra mile or ensure that you ensured quality was controlled throughout the process. Whatever your selling point is, as long as you're able to stipulate that with a level of transparency, creates that sense of trust, as the theme I've been trying to create with the beginning sets of the slide. Another company, InterSwitch, again speaks to the seamless supply chain financing. Again, speaks to exactly the challenges faced within the organization and how the use of the technology, once again, is added into the overall benefit and impact for the organization. That's essentially what is after here, how it's set to create and how it's set to develop. Challenge, to bridge the gap between existing corporate-based financing infrastructure in Nigeria and growing a number of small to medium-sized enterprises in need of capital. Now, InterSwitch was in the trade finance business, in the credit finance business, right? So that's a challenge that they particularly face, increasing a corporate financing infrastructure in Nigeria and growing number of small to medium-sized enterprises in need of cash, right? Supply chain financing involves multiple counterparties who lack end-to-end visibility, exposing lenders to risks, delaying financing, and jeopardizing projects. Those are challenges faced, something as simple as financing an infrastructure project. There's lag time in between there. But how do I know also that, exposing lenders to risk if you're ponying up a lot more money than they need to within any one particular project? Another point is delaying financing. Delaying financing delays the completion of the project. Again, speaks to those 3 points as I mentioned. Makes things, creates lag time, makes those processes that are currently in play very manualized and tends to delay time. Those are the 3 components that organizations need to function on. And that's the theme, if you've noticed, much of what these slides and much of what these organizations faced. There's lag time in that process that they're trying to grow. And what they're essentially trying to do is create that level of efficiency to be able to operate as efficiently as they need to be every step of the way, from beginning to end, depending on whatever project, whatever client they may be dealing with at that particular point in time. Solution. InterSwitch partnered with Microsoft. Again, Microsoft, one of the leader in corporation for the blockchain technology, to develop a blockchain-based supply chain financing service that brings together major financial institutions from different countries to seamlessly manage trade finance. Again, they've ensured that middleman is thrown out. You don't have to spend tirelessly filling out forms to get funding from 4 different financial institutions. Again, creating that lag time, creating that basis. What if I have a project that needs to be completed within the next 2 months, but I'll only get word back from those banks within the next 2 months? Creates that lag time. Project needs to be extended. Time is extended. It's made far more efficient. I have to report to stakeholders who are involved in this project and ensure them. They're not going to be very happy with me if I have to tell them that. Hence, the supply chain financing service that brings together major different financing to seamlessly manage that trade finance opportunity, again, makes it far more efficient to collaborate. Makes it far more likely to complete whatever given project you have within a set time, and makes it far more efficient to be able to carry out the tasks you need to carry out with the use of the technology, seeing its incorporation and seeing the value extracted from it. That's essentially what's key here. Results. Banks reduce their exposure to loss or fraud and streamline financing decisions, giving more people access to more funding while lenders can deliver more value. I mean, that's self-explanatory. With the use of the incorporation of the technology, it spins all that lag time it does and essentially pops out the result of what those organizations and participants who took on the technology was be able to access, was be able to benefit from incorporating that. Borrowers now secure financing 3 weeks or less, and they can take more time, take on more work in less time. Again, it speaks to those 3 points I mentioned. Efficient. That lag time that intermediaries would stall on, whether I need financing, whether I need to get verifications, whether I need to get certain docs in order, it streamlines that process all the way through. Allows me to be far more inefficient in less time than I would over more time. And that's what we're after. That's what we're after. Project contractors and suppliers can better predict requirements, accelerate turnover, and increase sales cycles and volumes. As a result, from all these benefits, they have access to funding on go, the secure financing within a much shorter time. It makes those project contractors and suppliers far more to order goods in advance because they've made that provision for it. They'll be able to act off a predictive capability, as mentioned before, able to make those adjustments where necessary, how necessary, and when necessary they need to. It makes the process far more efficient, far more collaborative, and streamlines it, getting rid of intermediaries, taking all the way the manual processing needed, and automate the processes in itself. But most importantly, out this process, they're ensuring trust is maintained. And every stakeholder that's involved with every piece of this understands it. Hence, they are able to collaborate as efficiently as they are by having easy on-go financing, by streamlining the process to access funding within 3 weeks. And again, to accelerate turnover and predict turnover, to be able to make certain projections to the project or what the project would entail. Whether it's certain goods that need to be ordered, verification docs that need to be verified. Whatever the process is those intermediary lag times that it's trying to slash in half to be able to ensure that it operates as efficiently as it needs to at every step of the way. Interswitch. Again, this is the diagram I spoke of prior. It speaks to exactly how that process would normally be done and with the use of blockchain. Everything I just explained to you just visually illustrates this. From the entrepreneur submits a purchase order to the supplier. Supplier requires a bank guarantee for the purchase. Bank admin releases ATC to customer, creates sale contract, verifies the customer with the bank. Bank manager option to counter the guarantee deals. Corporate sales director approves bank guarantee terms, issues bank guarantee. Supplier receives the guarantee and fulfills the order. Entrepreneur receives replies. See that process. Long process. Unnecessary to most of the extent. Now again, blockchain is sent to streamline this very same process. All the processes that we normally would undertake, verifications, docked on orders, processes that's automated and needs to be vetted by a third party to ensure trust, from your bank manager to your corporate sales director to the point where I actually receive my supplies. Seamless process. Now, if you move to the shared ledger, or the blockchain technology incorporation with the verification of the shared ledger and the network, you understand the piece of technology now. So when I explain the smart contract and how it's just a small little piece of software that executes a transaction, you're well versed. You may not have a full application to how it works, but you have a genuine understanding of the value add application it has. As it stipulates here, smart contract created, entrepreneur submits a service order to the supplier. Contract updated, supplier requires a bank guarantee. Bank and supplier agree on the agreed terms. The supplier receives the guaranteed and the fulfilled. Entrepreneur receives the supplies. Notice that every single intermediary that would be involved to vet that guarantee has been done by a streamlined process of a contract. Smart contract known as a piece of software that incorporates the process on how it needs to be applied. Again, speaks to the points of order here. Bueller, same thing. This is again just another case study to incorporate exactly how this epic piece of technology is applied. Much of it. From the challenge, lack of connectivity, transparency, trackability in food supply chain caused food waste and inefficiencies. Solution, Bueller, Microsoft developed blockchain strategy to gain grain, to track grain and ensure it's handled according to regulation. Result, digitally verify that all grades are handled compliantly as they move through the supply chain, providing transparency, each counterparty through the shared ledger. Again, makes it more efficient, less time consuming, creates value. That's essentially the hallmark figures that incorporate all these case studies with the incorporation of the technology. Again, visual illustration through. Obviously the slides will be made available to you if you're able to see the detailed application of it through. So you'll be able to understand exactly how it's incorporated, and now you have a very overview understanding of the technology itself. Again, this just speaks to the digitization of industries, the fourth industrial revolution. As I said, blockchain is just a technology. Its application can be used in a variety of different ways and in a variety of different forms, right? With the incorporation of AI and multitude of different technologies that's been implemented, from robotics to data analytics software, all of this is set to shake industries drastically. As I went into detail with the incorporation of data and how it's used to leverage over the market. This just speaks to it. But digitization of industry and processes deliver these same three things that I've been emphasizing throughout the point of my presentation. Reduce cost, increase efficiency, and mitigate risk. That's essentially what it's after here. And technology itself and the digitization of industries is going to happen within the next 5 to 10, 15 years. You can keep track of much of it. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, making some major headway in terms of robotics and inefficiencies there. If you have time to be able to look over that. And pretty much that details the end of my presentation. Thanks everybody for coming and showing this through, and hope I didn't take too much of your time.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you. I know we're sort of out of time. I don't know if there are any questions or for Liam.
So I just want to understand this. I'm just going to talk from an insurance perspective.
Okay.
So I'm a policyholder in your insurance company, and I tell you that I want household contents cover. And in the household contents, I need to tell you that I have some security measures on my house.
Like a risk control.
Yeah, so I have security gates, I have burglar bars, I have an alarm system. So if you're using blockchain in order to analyze my risk on your insurance company, you would have to, on the node network, you would have to contact the security company where I purchased my burglar bars from, and the alarm company.
So what will essentially happen is, with each sensor, the piece of technology essentially operates within that base.
Yes.
Now, when you took security measures to ensure that your house is safe, in the smart contract would stipulate that in fact you took those measures. The piece of software would in fact verify that. A variety of scanners, variety of a drone flying over to verify in fact that that's the case. The minute that case is verified, the smart contract is executed. Everybody in the network is notified, the process moves on.
Just want to hear your views on the use of smart wheels, where I'm dead, and then things will automatically be processed, and then there's no need for a lawyer to come and read the will for my family and those kind of things.
Listen, with the application of the technology, I wouldn't necessarily out particular work in life insurance. That's a particular sensitive topic. And people don't necessarily like technology getting involved there, because it tends to make things something that's very heartfelt, very robotic and processed, which not very people like to get involved in. And we can understand why. Nobody wants to get a letter telling you your loved one is dead. You know, it kind of makes the process necessarily very, very heartless in itself. So with the incorporation of the technology, it can definitely be applied there. But I mean, certain industries I don't think should be automated within the use of that, because that's pretty drastic. I won't even lie to you.
Okay. My question is that let's look at the industry such as the insurance.
Okay.
And let's take a case of Liberty Life.
Okay.
Everybody knows what happened to Liberty Life in the recent couple of years. If blockchain application was used before the yes, how
I'm not necessarily sure what happened to the Liberty Life, I must admit.
Lost information.
they lost a lot of information,
Oh, they lost a
client
lot of
information that was hacked. Yeah, sort of hacked. Yeah.
A classic case like that. You know, client information is a very sensitive topic to every organization. It's the last thing you want to get out, right? Now, preventive measures could have been taken to ensure that this doesn't case, whether it's with the use of, you know, software protection to ensure against hack, or any of your major names like Norton and Friends, you know, to improve on the systems. But I mean, a classic case, blockchain wouldn't necessarily be vetted on. I mean, they could have had dummy computers, right? Not necessarily computers connected to individual in particular, because that information again is trying to be protected. So they could have a same peer-to-peer verification process, but amongst computers. That, I don't know if you know, involves the element of machine learning. Machine learning does that. It's how the computer can learn from itself and the computer next to it. So if Liberty could even take preventive measures to ensure that their network or particular servers, where they keep client information, is not hacked, they could have taken massive measures. I mean, your big tech guys in the industry drop, cargo ships with servers in it at remote locations you would never expect, purely to secure client information. So as far as what Liberty could have done, I mean, they could have definitely implemented the technology, but in a different way, or not what it would be intended to do, because they tend to try to protect client information, not necessarily verify that it's in fact happened. So they could have had dummy computers to just ensure that the contract would be vetted there, but no one gets prying eyes on it. Hence, client's information is protected.
What would be your view in terms of audit function to be a bit more strategic before the application of blockchain?
To be completely honest with you, the technology automates the process and makes it far more efficient. The definition of, the general practice of audit is to vet, is to reassure. Right? These are the buzzwords used amongst that particular function. Now, there's not more you can do there. Right? The reality is, to a large extent, is that most audit functions should just improve that these processes function as streamlined, not vet that they've been done. Because if we're sitting in an organization and we're all looking over everybody's shoulders and looking back at us and over everybody's shoulders back and forth, I mean, it creates a sense of untrust in the organization. Because now you're not doing an audit function because you're trying to make the organization function more, it's because I'm trying to catch you out. And what type of work environment is that? I mean, when you're trying to, the best audit function would essentially be guys trying to catch him out. Then it would be far more efficient. But it's not the corporate culture you want to create. Because it creates animosity, it creates envy, and creates a sense of trying to find fault in someone. Yeah. And what type of work environment is that?
I heard when you started, you were talking of that we are on in one network. Whatever she does, I will know, she will know.
Yes.
So I just want to know with this ledger thing, so is it what? It's not centralized, is it something that is distributed?
So if I had to set it up in a classic case, it functions off a cloud-based software platform, right? Cloud-based software platform, Jonathan's probably well more versed in it than I am, but the cloud-based software platform is almost, it functions in a invisible network above everything else, right? It doesn't function on the base, because if we had actual physical servers or actual central points, there's a sense of vulnerability there, all right? Far more than a hacker, but somebody coming on and just bombing the machine is a classic case.
Okay. Using the example that you used for the house in San Francisco.
Yes.
So where will I go? Let's say if I start the process, I must go to a certain network. Who created it?
There's a company. They're called, I mentioned them, C-Voice. They essentially offer smart contract within real estate. So if you move to that particular organization, them in particular, you'll be able to function off of their network with their sets of buyers and sellers. So if they have a bunch of sellers on that network and you're a buyer, you essentially move into the network as a buyer, right? Again,
get everybody on board.
Yes, exactly. The technologies.
On what she was asking, I'm thinking of like the government departments. You are buying and you need to involve the government department that deals with deeds, the deeds office.
Deeds offices.
How I'm going to bring them on board so that they are on that network, so that if I verify everything is
there. You see, that's the unfortunate thing about South Africa's economic landscape in particular. We have first world infrastructure, but we operate from a third world mentality. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate, because these processes, as a classic case, can be automated within organizations like this, government department like this.
That's what I'm thinking.
But the unfortunate thing is that definitely, but again, the deeds office will need to get on the network to ensure that people give them a part of the network. Home Affairs will essentially need to create a network to ensure that we become so on and so forth. You see, so once we're able to get everybody on that particular network functioning on it, then we'll be able to reap rewards from its efficiency, its reduced cost, but that's a very bad thing for the country and a very bad thing for the politicians. I can be completely honest with you, if I was on a politician, that's bad for me. Because you know how much jobs that kicks out of people at Home Affairs? Everybody in that office is gone. I can assure you of that. Everybody in every bank teller is gone.
It's happening right
It's happening right now. Standard Bank released over 40,000 employees.
Do you need to use like a certain token or a coin like Bitcoin to get into that network?
Not necessarily. The thing is, in my understanding, Bitcoin itself is a very speculative market. And if you know anything, the mother of all bubbles is speculation. That's the truth of it. So Bitcoin in particular functions off some very techno, non-understanding language that me being in finance, very shaky, very, very shaky, which is a discussion we can have at a later stage. But blockchain in particular can function off ZAR, into a special account, smart contracts executed, payment made. That's the blockchain technology. Try to sideline blockchain from Bitcoin. But that's why I try to create the theme that blockchain is just a technology. Like virtual reality is a technology. Like artificial intelligence is a technology. Like peer-to-peer file sharing is a technology. Bluetooth, it's a technology. But its application is vast. And that's what you need to understand. So try to sideline Bitcoin from blockchain. As soon as you have a general understanding of blockchain and how it verifies transactions, network, node, slides will be available. Then you'll see Bitcoin and you'll say, oh, peer-to-peer transactions. I know that. I know what technology they use. I know how they vet this and that. But the valuations they get, the level of value they set this Bitcoin at, it's absolutely ridiculous in my opinion, because the reason why we have money and currency as in one, our currency has claim to the government. The government sets the level of value. So the whole world recognizes ZAR, the rand. That's why it's vetted in the network, that's why it's of value. Now I know why the rand dips. This is all something economics 101, all right? If current economic lands, we suffer 3.2 decline, right, in our GDP. This is very, very poor considering the level of infrastructure this country has. East Africa is climbing. Organizations that go to East Africa, they'll wipe the floor with you. Those people are not playing on any level. They're pumping out more female programmers in Ethiopia. Is pumping out more female programmers than anywhere else in the world. Stats people don't know. East Africa is growing by 5, 6, 7%. That's where we should have been growing at back in 08, 09, 010. They're doing it now, and they have less infrastructure than we do. Now, where do you think countries like that are going to be within the next 25 to 30 years? 40, 50. I mean, I had a very American view on Rwanda. I won't even lie to you. Today, not too long ago, you can set up a company in Rwanda in a day. You can't do that here. CIPC login details, this, that, sign this, scan this, back and forth action, time consuming. Again, I'll make points to my time consuming, costly, the whole works. Now, your East African country is making major headway, absolutely major. I can have a whole presentation on what they're doing.
You know, on the origin of the whole blockchain that is being used, since I'm an auditor, so looking at the audit perspective, and maybe the people who created that blockchain, yes, there is an element of humans, and that's where they can then fool the systems, not the people within, but the people who are the custodians of that system.
Not the case at all. The developers behind the technology of blockchain, because the same could be said about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created by some Japanese folk called Soshio Tamashi, or whatever his name is. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. You know, he created it back in 08, 09, after the financial crisis. That's why he created it, right? That man is not known for the fact that he created it. It probably is the first time you've heard of his name. Now, if that's the case, everybody's jumping on. There's Litecoin, Ethereum, Ripple, all of these different networks. But does anybody mention him? He created it. He's not mentioned. Does he have any play in it? Not at all. If everybody can jump on this network and it's being hyped and sold as much as it is, there's obviously nobody at the helm here. Because somebody at the helm would not allow something like this to take shape. Because this is not why Bitcoin was created. It was created to ensure that another financial crisis doesn't happen. But unfortunately, within the base of a capitalized system and a mixed economy that we have, with governments controlling SOEs and private sectors not having much of a foot within these sectors. Electricity is a massive sector. Massive sector. We have private guys involved in there. The economy is set to do drastic change, I can assure you that. While we're still dealing with energy crisis, these people in Silicon Valley, more than 50% of Europe's electricity is off of solar energy. We can't even get our energy mix right. You get me? I mean, it's drastic. But if you keep a keen insight to what the rest of the world is doing, how they're doing it, at the level they're playing at, you'll open your eyes to see exactly how far behind we are.